Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the fifth episode of the Rangers Gameplan podcast, where we talk about the week that was the New York Rangers. I'm Weston, and I am joined by Evan here to wrap up the final regular season podcast of the year before we get into the playoffs. And I say talk about the week that was, even though this was one of the most underwhelming weeks in recent memory, where there was one entertaining game and three that simply had to be played.
Yeah, and they have another one tomorrow that just has to be played.
I
And tomorrow, the thing is, like, I'm pretty sure Toronto's going to be resting like everyone tomorrow. And I don't think the Rangers are, and I would like them to. But the last game of the regular season, they usually do the, like, jerseys off their back thing with the fans. So they're going to make everyone play. And I just hope that nothing bad happens. That's all I'm asking. Please, just like nobody hit anybody the whole game, and just I don't care what the score is. I don't just nobody get hurt, please.
The real game at this point is don't get injured. And everything
Yeah,
beside that
and
is completely immaterial.
and it's just like I know Lindgren is like basically indestructible, but he's still just taking pucks off the face, off his knees, all that, and I just please stop. I don't care if the puck goes in. Just stop trying, please. I get so terrified. Like I think
Yeah, you were mentioning Ryan Lindgren dying every time he steps on the ice. That was a brief technical difficulty, but we're fine. We're back.
take two. We're fine.
Take two.
All right. Yeah. I mean, I it's it's so concerning with him specifically because last year he got hurt in game 82, and obviously he played in the Penguin series and everything, but like with his play style, he's not going to change it.
No.
And it's just like when you're playing in game 81 and 82, just I'd rather just not play him. It's obviously nothing against him, but he's not going to stop blocking shots. He's not going to stop, getting into scrums behind the net, all that stuff. So it's really, really concerning to see him on the ice in meaningless games. And we have one more tomorrow, and I'm just hoping that everything goes smoothly. Like I said before, I don't care what the score is. I don't at all. Just please, just nobody get hurt. That's really just been the theme of the past like 3 weeks.
Stay healthy. I don't think words can describe how violently angry I was after he took that puck to the face in the Buffalo game, where I'm just like, okay, here we go. He took it, he left. I will say I love Ryan Lindgren. I thought it was quite entertaining that he came back for the shootout. Like, yeah, you're not getting a chance here, but I love you, but you're not getting a shot.
Yeah, I mean he came back, but it's like it's
Why?
more just for show than anything else. Like that's all it's for.
That was for the
They
terrified
they just
Rangers
threw him back
fans.
out there just so that people could tweet, "Oh my God, he's back after taking a puck in the face." That's all that was.
Fair. I just
That's literally all that was.
I understand that it would be special to get like the game worn Shesterkin. I swear to God, if it's Igor and Net on tomorrow, I swear to God,
Oh man,
just
it's like just I have the feeling they're gonna do it just for the sake of I can already hear them being like, oh well, we want to have him see a few shots before the playoffs start, and we don't want to have him on like a full week's rest basically before the playoffs. I don't care. He's gonna be fine. Like I'm not concerned about him being rusty or anything game one. Just please sit him. And I do want them to just go 11-7,
mm-hmm.
11 forwards and 7 defensemen, but it's probably not going to happen. And it's even more difficult when they literally can't call anybody up, because if it were up to me, the entire Hartford Wolfpack would be playing tomorrow, like all of them.
If it were
But
up to
that's
you,
just obviously not going to happen.
if it were up to you, and if it were so that the Rangers had more than like $1,400 left in cap space, that would be the move.
Yeah, and it's funny because I'm pretty sure they are like right around that number
I it's
or in cap space.
I think it was
It might be
16.
1,600.
I think it was
Yeah, but
1,600.
like
It was
most
nine,
working adults have more money in their bank account than the Rangers have cap space.
which
Like
is quite a
it's
statistic.
very concerning.
I think it's 99.97% of the cap has been used.
Yeah,
Which
that's crazy. That's
the
crazy.
fact that you
I
couldn't call up a minor leaguer for like half a period is insane.
Yeah, which I mean, speaking of that, and this is kind of going completely off topic for what we're about to talk about, but I don't understand why the Rangers didn't qualify for a call up. Like when they actually needed one, a couple weeks ago, like right after the Kane trade, it didn't make any sense because like you had a few players injured. Like it makes literally the NHL rule of what can be considered call up eligible, the Rangers qualified for and they weren't able to. And I don't care at this point, but I want to know why. Like I want somebody to give me an explanation because they qualified for what the NHL says you have to qualify for to call someone up, and they didn't let them.
I think it was it maybe the fact that the Rangers were just too talented and good looking to maybe qualify. Perhaps
That could be it.
it was the
That could be
loophole
it.
in the
But
rules.
they just can't put that out publicly, you know?
They saw how pretty Patrick Kane looked with Artemi Panarin, and they said they can't get another one.
Yeah,
I mean,
they just we can't allow that. Now, oh my God. So I can't believe that like we have another game to play tomorrow. And also, by the way, I don't think we mentioned it yet. They are locked into third
yeah.
now officially, so that's cool. I guess that we have some clarity on the situation in this division.
Woo!
But we still don't know who we're playing. Now, the reason we held off for a day on making this is because we thought there was a chance that we might know who we were playing today, and we don't. At least we can put to bed like, oh, they could still win the division, they could still take second. At least we can't talk about that anymore. And the one thing I will mention about that is the Rangers clearly never cared about that, because it was so within reach for them to at least take second,
Mm-hmm.
and they didn't even try to do that. Like they have not increased their level of effort whatsoever. And all the the reporters were asking the players how they feel about home ice and everything, and they're just like, we don't care. Like that's every single player they asked just simply does not care about it. And I don't care either, mainly because the team is making, forcing me to believe that it doesn't matter, but also they are a very good team on the road. And I think if it wasn't, well, once again, we don't know who we're playing, but let's assume that it is the Devils. That's not necessarily an away game. Now,
Yeah.
I'm not trying to talk shit or anything like that, but it's not rocket science to figure this out. They're very close in proximity to each other, and it doesn't matter if it's an MSG or Prudential Center, it will be 50-50 with fans both ways. So that really doesn't matter to me. The only thing that changes between the arenas is who gets the goal horn after they score. That's literally all that matters. But we don't know if we're playing them.
Yeah.
So we still don't know. So we'll see what happens.
I think it's a possibility where the Rangers saying, not that I'm not saying that they did this, but really if you look at it, it's still not it's not really a way if you play the Devils because you're in your own bed, you're going to have the split crowd. And if you play the Canes, you might actually have more fans than Canes fans in Carolina than in New York. I mean,
yeah, and they beat them in Carolina last year. So
yeah, they
is
were
it
able to go in
something
for
that I'm
game.
concerned about? If they had to go and play Boston in Boston, then we're having we're singing
Yeah.
a different song there. But
I mean, they only-
like when you talk about the two potential matchups that they could have here, I'm not concerned about home ice in either one.
They almost took Boston. They were only like 20 points behind them in the standings. It was
Yeah,
neck and neck
they
until
got
the
real
very
close,
end.
but yeah.
That Boston team. Can I just, again, off topic? Jesus Christ, Boston is unbelievable.
Yeah, yeah.
All-time wins, all-time points. That's...
It really is crazy. I don't know who's gonna beat them, and I guess the one thing that I will start off by saying is obviously the past few games I haven't cared really. Obviously, you have the Tampa game, which was fun, and that was I guess it was a meaningful game. Like it didn't matter in the standings at all, but that was the last like playoff team that you're playing
Yeah.
that isn't going to be resting anybody. Like neither team is going to try tomorrow. And I would really doubt that the Maple Leafs put any of their top players on the ice tomorrow. So that completely, um, nothing matters tomorrow. But the Tampa game, it was a bloodbath, and they clearly still don't like each other.
Oh
And
boy.
Ben Harper had like the best game of his career. By the way, though, I'm not saying I want him in the playoffs, but that was just cool that like he actually contributed to the team. Like that was, I guess, that was a fun moment.
If it ends up happening, and I agree with you, where I'm not sold on him in the playoffs, unless you play Tampa, in which case play him for 30 minutes. If you
Oh
go up
yeah,
against Tampa,
yeah. I don't know. Out of all teams he decides to play well against, it's literally the Tampa Bay Lightning, which is odd.
can you
But
imagine some cursed reality? It's Game 7 of the Eastern Final. It's Tampa and New York, and Ben Harper has the legacy game.
oh my god, like oh my god, I don't know what I would do. Obviously, I'd be thrilled, but like, what are the odds of that?
That was... That game was insane.
Yeah, I mean
And
that was cool that they definitely stepped up in a game like that because we've said it for the past like 4 episodes. Like they just don't care what happens because they've been locked into this spot in the standings for so long, and why would you burn yourself out if it's not necessary? Now it's cool that they fully flipped the switch and turned it on for a team that they don't like and a
mhm.
team that they could potentially see again. That was just cool that they didn't get completely dominated or anything. And the one thing I was going to mention is, I mean, now that the playoffs are officially about to start, obviously, no matter who you play, whether it be Carolina or New Jersey, it's not going to be easy. With that being said, there's no excuse for them not winning the first round. Um, it has nothing to do with the team they're going to play. I'm not trying to make it seem like they're leaps and bounds above either one of them, but what does this team not have? This is one of, if not the best Rangers lineups on paper, and whether it be Carolina or the Devils, they just don't have the depth to match the Rangers. And considering that they have shown that they only care about the big games, then you have to show that you're not going to get first rounded. Like that, I mean, if you're not going to try to move up in the standings and you're not going to try against teams that you're much, much better than all season, then there's no excuse for you getting eliminated in the first round. There's absolutely no excuse.
I was going to bring up a similar point when we started talking about the playoff matchups with the different lines and what have you, but I completely agree with the fact this is one of, I would say at least in the time that I've watched the Rangers, or go back to since they really fully restarted in like 2000, like when the every remnant of that 90s cup run was gone. This is the most deep team the Rangers have ever had this century. On
Absolutely.
every
Yeah.
line, on every defensive pair. I'm not going to tell you that Brendan Schneider is an all-star caliber defenseman, but if he's your fifth or sixth defenseman, you have a very solid and very deep lineup. The lines themselves are unbelievable, and it's to the
Yeah.
point where looking at it, you're gonna get some goal production legitimately out of a fourth line, which is ridiculous to say. Shesterkin is enough said about him. Like he is him,
Yeah.
and I really
Yeah.
would agree with you that this is. It's not anything to take away from Carolina or the Devils, but you cannot push all in the way the Rangers did, be this deep, have this much talent, and lose in the first round. And
Yeah.
if
And
you lose in the first round, if
mhm.
if they do, it has got to be a 7-game war. Like there
Yeah.
is no shot you can play if you play anything less than 7 games in the playoffs. This is one of the greatest failures in the recent memory of the Rangers.
Yeah, and
And
I mean, to touch on the lineup a little bit more, I mean, obviously it's tough to say that they're the deepest team they've ever had because obviously they haven't won the cup yet. But obviously a lot of people are going to bring up 94 and all the old heads are going to bring up 94 and say that this lineup doesn't snuff up to that. I'm sorry, like if you go through and compare, like Jeff Bukaboom was not as good as Keandre Miller is. He's not. I'm sorry. I don't know if that's going to offend anybody, but he wasn't. And just, I mean, I'll say this. I mean, every Rangers playoff run I've ever watched in my life, they have had kind of a carousel on like the third or fourth line of guys that are plugged in for a game and then scratched, mid-series and stuff like that. That isn't going to happen with this team. Like there's nobody on, in this lineup that could potentially be swapped out for someone in the press box. Like I mean, you saw it last year and you saw it in every Rangers, like I said, every playoff run they've ever had. There's like they'll have one lineup for game one, and then they'll scratch a couple guys on the fourth line and plug another two in. That's not going to happen now.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, I don't. Other than Boston, like who else in out of the current playoff teams can say that they have like their fully set lineup? Now, I'm not trying to sit here and say that the Rangers are the best team, other than Boston or anything. Obviously, everybody has their opinion on that, but I've the more I've sat here and thought about the playoffs to come, it's just like I said before, like what does this team not have? On any of the lines, they have exactly what you want for a recipe of a Stanley Cup team. Now, like you said, I mean, if they do lose in the first round, it's got to be 7 games, like in overtime, and it's got to be every single one of those games is a complete bloodbath. If this team crumbles and loses in the first round, then I don't know when they're going to win the whole thing. And I'm not trying to sit here and be negative. It's a positive thing because this has to be the year where you at least make another deep playoff run because you've already gone all in. There's not going to be another Patrick Kane that forces his way onto the team next year. It's not going to happen. You're not going to get that trade deadline magic again with all of these guys wanting to play for you. And especially, when we think about home ice and the specific matchups between, the two potential teams we're going to be playing, neither one of them really have as many players that are going to that you can basically lock in for production.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of this Rangers team showed up in last year's playoffs and consistently. Maybe after they went down 3-1 to Pittsburgh, only after that point. But there's, a solid handful of guys that I have no question about going into the playoffs. This will probably be the only truly negative thing that I say this entire episode. Keandre Miller has not been good for a minute now.
Mm-hmm.
And it is concerning, and not to say that I don't have faith in him, because I absolutely do. But in the second half of the season, he's definitely completely fallen off. And when you look at the first half of the season, we all thought he should have been an all-star. He was that good. Now, not to say he's been god awful. He's still made plenty of great plays, but he doesn't look like himself. And for me to feel truly confident, in this first round, he's got to be better. And I don't like to single anyone out. I'm not trying to make it seem like he's the only reason they've lost games for the past few weeks. But he just, like I said before, he has not been himself, and he's turning the puck over a lot. And that really is, like I said, my main concern and probably the only negative thing that I have as of right now. I do have faith in him to become himself again,
Mm-hmm.
Come game one. But I think if there's one thing that everyone in this fan base is collectively concerned about right now, it would probably be him.
I would agree with that, and I would say I think to an extent some of his defensive shortcomings have been mopped up as the season's progressed because whereas Trouba started the year off just terrible and in the gutter.
Hmm.
Miller played borderline for the first little bit to be a name floated around for a Norris for a hot minute. It
Hmm.
wasn't the entirety of the first half, but for a little bit there. And then after Truba threw his helmet at the sideline and screamed at them, he's come alive defensively and has found himself again. And in that time, Miller started to trail off. I will say, for why I think he will be back at 100% come game one, he was probably the best defenseman you had in the playoffs last season.
Yeah,
Of the
yeah. I
six
mean,
that were there, I think he was probably the best. And really, if you look at all of it said and done from a defensive standpoint, like defensively, and the occasional offensive spark that he would throw in, he might have been one of your best three players from the playoffs last season.
yeah, and
And
I think in last year's playoffs is when he really made a name for himself for other teams. Um, every other fan base and coach that we played in the playoffs last year raved about him specifically. And it's because he is extremely fast and he's the biggest player on the ice most of the time. And he has this ability to catch up to guys when they're three steps ahead of him. And he's still done that occasionally
mm-hmm.
in the past few games. Um,
I think he had a great. I think it was a play in the Sabres game where it was a 2-on-1 that he was able to lie out and just knock the puck away. So he still had flashes. He hasn't been a dumpster fire, but he definitely has
Yeah,
not
no, I
been.
mean, I'm not trying to make it seem like he's been completely useless or
No.
anything like that, but the mistakes he has made have been glaring.
Yes.
Um, like turning the puck over immediately leading to a goal. That's happened more than once in the past few
Was
weeks.
that in the St. Louis game? The egregious
That
one on the pinch?
there was one in the St. Louis game. There was one in the Sabres game, and I'm not sure if there were any others that I could think of like right off the top of my head, but it's been happening, pretty consistently recently. Um, not to say, like I said, I'm not trying to single anybody out, but considering, like you just mentioned, that he was one of the best players on your team in the playoffs last year, you need him to do that again. He is one of the X factors on this team for a series changer in terms of depth and all that. So he's got to find it. And like I said, I definitely have faith in him to do that. He's been a very good player for a very long time for us, but it's like I said, that's really the only thing that I need to change right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think overall the rest of the defense looks better or looks good. Shocker, shocker, putting Nico Mikkola on a third pair where he's not playing 25 minutes a night, he hasn't been a problem. He's
Oh
been
yeah,
perfectly
he's
fine.
been awesome. Like he really has been awesome. And I I don't notice him too much, and for a third pairing defenseman,
That's
that's
what you
a good
want.
thing. That's a good thing. And I mean, he jumps up, on offense occasionally, which is cool. Um, Stuff like that. He's perfect for this role.
Mhm.
He won the Stanley Cup in this role, so it's like I can't stress this enough. I think the first episode, that's the main thing we talked about is like we just need him to not be playing as many minutes as Adam Fox, and we should be fine. Um, and so far that's been the case. And I think he's surprisingly a little bit fast. Not to make it seem like he's a speed demon or anything like that, but he does tend to catch up to guys pretty quickly, and I think that's pretty cool because over the past few years, the Rangers' sixth defenseman has not been able to do that at all. So it's cool. Like, when he was first brought here, all I wanted him to be was serviceable,
Mhm.
and that's all he's been so far, and I'm happy with it.
Yeah.
Um, I guess to talk a little bit about um, the Tampa game, I think obviously Tampa scored three, but I think the Rangers were the better team in every facet of that game. And obviously that's a little bit biased, but it's one of those things where every goal that Tampa scored was pretty fluky and they didn't have, too many great chances. And considering, the Rangers were without Truba and probably weren't even trying that much again, it was definitely cool to see the offense kind of explode for six goals again and them to really get into that playoff mode where there's fights after every play and stuff like that. That's going to be happening in a few days.
Yeah.
So it's cool to have a little, a little taste of that. Um, Now I guess we'll start talking about the Devils.
Yeah.
I think we're gonna play them. I don't know.
God,
We'll
man.
see. We still don't know. Um, but I mean, they we've definitely touched on it a lot recently. Or I guess in every episode so far, they are a very good team, and we know this. But like I said earlier, the main thing I've been thinking about recently is just like why why not us? And I know that sounds corny, but and that's obviously one of the classic cliche sports, sayings ever, but why not the Rangers to at least make a deep playoff run?
Hmm.
Um I think experience doesn't tell the full story. Like it doesn't matter all that much, but it definitely matters a little bit.
Right.
I especially being that when you don't have home ice, if they cared, at least it's good to know you have several players on this team that are not going to be nervous in the
Hmm.
slightest. Patrick Kane will not have any nerves whatsoever. Tarasenko will not have any nerves, and pretty much the entire top six will not be nervous at all.
Hmm.
Um, and I think this is something I've been wanting to talk about for a while. Vincent Trocheck, I think, is going to be one of the best players on this team in the playoffs. Just seeing what he did against us last year, his play style is literally built for the playoffs. And I think he's obviously on a very, very talented line. And the reason we signed him is because he was literally a giant pain in the neck against us in that 7-game series. Every single game, he was one of the most noticeable players for Carolina. And like I said, that's because of how his play style is. I mean, he's fast and he's just always going to the front of the net. And that is exactly, what you need in the playoffs. And he's been a little underwhelming this year. He hasn't been bad, but I think a lot more was expected from him just because he's playing with Panarin. I think a lot of people expected him to just have 80 points or something just because of who he's playing with. I don't care as much about the production. I think he's going to take over in that series. And to talk about the Devils, the head-to-head matchup for Trocheck would probably be Nico Hischier.
Hmm.
And that'll definitely be extremely fun to watch. And being that Trocheck has significantly more experience, I think he can absolutely dominate if he wants to.
I love
Like
that.
that.
So much of this team is if they actually would like to try, or if they would actually like to blank, it should be heavily in our favor. That matchup is going to be a lot of fun. Those are two guys that definitely know how to get rough with it.
Hmm.
That's a very intriguing matchup. I wanted to say with Trocheck, it's a phrase that you hear a lot. I think last year in the playoffs, specifically against him, he had a goal in game 5, 6, and 7. So when Carolina needed it most, he was scoring for them. The rest of their team
Yeah.
wasn't. He was. He was still eating the Rangers alive. And like I said, it's a phrase you hear all the time. That was a signing the Rangers made so that you don't have to play against him. They
Hmm.
did not want to see him in the playoffs. They go out and get him. He's been fine. I think you're dead on with the fact that his play or his style of play is just begging to be back in the playoffs. And I wanted to
Yeah.
touch on it a little bit, talking about nerves for players. I think going into this game, with the production the Rangers had out of them last season, I honestly believe the pressure's on the Devils' young kids, young players like a Mercer, like Bratt, Nico Hischier, and especially Jack Hughes to score and to be great. Because Kako, Hedel, Lafreniere, they've had up and down seasons. I'm not going to say that they have been incredible this season. They've all been fine. They've all taken steps forward, especially a guy like Philip Hedel. But they
Hmm.
know how to make plays in the playoffs. They did it last year. They drug the Rangers through the muck in the first 4 games of that Pittsburgh series, and were the only players on the ice that gave them a pulse through 4. And I think you could come into that series with the Devils guys feeling more nervous than them, because if they slip up, if they can't get it done, they get labeled with that, whereas the Rangers kids of, oh yeah, they're a little shaky in the regular season, but man, you get them to playoff hockey, they come to life. And I'm not going to say that Jack Hughes is a bad player, because that would be idiotic. He set the Devils franchise record, if I'm not mistaken, in points in the season with 97 this season. Very talented player.
Last night. Yep.
And only played in 77 of the games. If he would have played a full season, all 82, easily cracks 100. Not a question. But, and I know it's one of those old head for things to say, but I have to. He does not score the playoff type of grit goals that the kids line has as of late, where it's guys like Lafreniere, like Kakko, who are getting down and dirty in the blue paint with the goaltender, and they did it last season in the playoffs too, where they know how to get them, and I question what Jack Hughes is going to do with that, where play is a lot more physical, and I'm not saying Jack Hughes can't take a hit, but I'm just imagining 5'11", 175 Jack Hughes getting laid out by Trouba open ice. And I don't know how they're going to respond to that.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, he's definitely a very, very, very good player, but we just don't know what he's going to do in the playoffs. Devils fans obviously don't know. And I think his production is going to be more so based off the Rangers' performance than his. Because I feel like if he does, have an outstanding playoffs, especially against the Rangers, it's going to be because the Rangers are not doing a good enough job of defending him. Because a lot of the goals he scores, he has so much time and space, and the Rangers just have to find a way to take that away from him. Now, who knows if, obviously, he could potentially just, kind of adapt that playoff play style and start scoring some, tap-ins or something, some, gritty playoff style goals. Who knows? But if the Rangers just get lit up by Jack Hughes and he is wide open on every single goal he scores or every assist, that's going to be more so on the Rangers than it is his performance. That's not taking anything away from him, but when you're in a playoff series, you cannot let those things happen. That goes without saying. So it's going to be interesting to see, especially since he's had success against the Rangers, so far in his career. But who knows how he's going to adapt to the, the playoff style. I guess, like you said, the kid line has to be everything we expect from them. And going into the, this playoff run, I have to say, if they really, really, really turn it on, obviously they've had, like you said, they've taken a huge leap forward this year, and they've gained a lot of attention from not only Rangers fans, but I think they're more well respected around the league now that they're actually producing on a somewhat consistent level. They have got to be somewhat what we've drafted them for in the playoffs, and I don't think the Rangers will be beatable if that's the case. Alexi Lafreniere and Kaapo Kakko were highly, highly, highly touted prospects, and I think they're at 39 points each this year. Obviously, it's not insane production, but that line together has been awesome, and I just really want to see them kind of have a full-on prove-it series, at least in the first round, because we know all the drama with Hughes and Kakko and all that stuff, and Devils fans still love to talk about that. So if that, if the kid line produces the way that we expect, that will, shut a lot of, haters' mouths up, and that'll really get their name out there, because, obviously, like I said, 39 points isn't anything to write home about, but if how do I put this? If they, especially, Heedle, I have confidence in him scoring. He was great in the playoffs last year, but I gotta see some great stuff out of Laughing Kako in the playoffs. I have to, because if they get shut down and the Rangers lose in the first round, it's gonna be tough to not put that on them. For the reason being that the Rangers third line, we as Rangers fans like to consider it the best third line in the league.
Hmm.
And if they get shut down and the Rangers get eliminated, it's really, really tough to draw any positives from the kid line this season, which has been very positive for the most part. But
Yeah.
it all comes down to the playoffs.
I definitely agree with that, and you were dead on. It was 39 points for both Kako and Lafreniere,
Hmm.
which, and it's not to kind of go home on that with the whole. This is what you were drafted for. You're in year, God, 4 of Heedle, year 3.
Or yeah,
No, 5
yeah.
of Heedle. Yeah,
I think his he
debut.
was drafted 5 years ago, but I don't think he played much his like
Jesus,
first year after. I don't
he
think.
was a full-on rookie in 18-19. So this is his 5th full season at the NHL level. That
Okay, time has definitely flown
God,
by.
no. I
That
hate that with passion. Anyway, what was back to the point. 5 years of him. Good God. That completely threw me. 5 years of him. 4 years of Kako, and this is the third year of Alexis Lafreniere. You're out of. We still call them the kids line because it's the nickname that's stuck. They've got to do
they,
it. It's
they yeah, this is their time to shine. It really. I mean, ever I all season, I don't think there's been a game where they've been bad ever. They've been extremely noticeable on the majority of their shifts in like every game.
mhm.
The production isn't fully there. It's not like they have 80 points each right now. But this is something that's been talked about ever since, Laugh and Kako were brought onto this team. If they live up to their draft type, the Rangers are unbeatable. It's that simple. I know the Bruins are very, very good, but forget forget the type of players you think they both are right now.
Mhm.
If you rewind back to before they were drafted and when they were being scouted and all the hype around both of them, they were seen as elite players, especially Alexi Lafreniere, especially him. And he was at the time the most hyped prospect since Connor McDavid. Now, that's not to say he is Connor McDavid, but he is right up there in records in juniors with Sidney Crosby and Wayne Gretzky. I don't know if you've ever heard of them. Like, this is not a guy that was just like he had one good year in his last junior season and he got drafted high. That's not that he was sought after for like 3 or 4 years straight because everybody thought he was going to be a franchise player, like immediately steps in and becomes a superstar, all that stuff. Obviously, it hasn't worked out that way, but right now in the year that the Rangers are going all in, they have to show up in a massive way. Like they have to be consistently one of, if not the best lines on the ice, because they have the talent to do it. And this, like I said before, this is their time to prove what they were drafted for. And, like I said, this has been a very, very positive season for them. We've raved about them ever since they were put together full time. That the whole kid line,
Mhm.
but they have enough experience now. They had their first playoff run last year, and they've just got to get it done. And I'm not trying to just single out that line, but the Rangers' third line is what is supposed to make them much deeper than at least the Hurricanes and the Devils, because
Yeah.
obviously the Bruins are insane right now, and there's nothing you could say that's negative about them. But the Canes and the Devils do not have a third line with that much upside as the Rangers do. So they've got to come through for me. Like that is those three players are the ones that I'm watching the most out of anybody on this team.
It's paramount that they can do what they are by all rights, supposed to do. And I think that's... People aren't talking so much about questions with the first line or the second line with the Rangers because you know what you're going to get with them. You know the star players. That third line was at bare minimum. Actually, no, they kind of did against Tampa as well. They were your best line last season in your playoff run. That, again, was...
Yeah, every series. Absolutely.
Every year. You had the shift that, had they won that series against Tampa, would have just been playing on loop in the lobby of MSG against Tampa, where they just pillaged the two-time defending champions for a full minute and a half in the offensive zone and couldn't let all-star caliber players, in some cases Hall of Fame caliber players, wouldn't let them breathe in their own zone, hemmed for over a minute, and then scored that ridiculous goal where Hedl just, dong shots it in. Mm-hmm. If they can build off of that, if they can build off of what they were, if the first line and second line are as expected, and the third line takes that little step from last season, maybe it's bias, it probably is. That is the only team that I think could go toe-to-toe in a series against Boston. I
can't stress this enough that, Hedl wasn't, a number one prospect or anything like that, but he's developed into a very, very good player. The other two on that line were seen as, Laff was seen as the best player in his draft, and Kakko was at one point seen as better than Jack Hughes. Obviously, that's not the case right now. We all know this. But when they were coming out of, junior hockey, they were seen as, gotta have players. They were seen as franchise-altering players. And if they get anywhere near that in the Rangers playoff run, they will not be beatable. They won't, because I have full confidence that Igor is going to be lights out in the playoffs. I think he's going to be phenomenal. And obviously, like you said, the top two lines, you know what you're going to get out of them. It's just that third line has got to do it for me. They can't. They really have to. Oh my God, it's so frustrating to think, because honestly, they have had that type of season where the production could be double what they have right now. Mm-hmm. But they just struggle to put the puck in the net sometimes. They have all these great shifts and they have all this offensive zone time, but they just got to start really, really putting the puck in the net. And if they can do that consistently in the playoffs, I don't see how they can lose. Obviously, there's a massive amount of Rangers bias and fandom in me saying that, but like I mentioned before, forget your perception of Laff and Kakko right now. Think of the hype around them when they were drafted. If they can get anywhere near that in this playoffs, it's over for everyone else.
Yeah.
So that has got to be my X factor, especially against the Devils, who I think Miles Wood is on their third line. If I believe,
was about to say that.
So it's come on, guys. If you're playing against Miles Wood, you gotta give me something.
I was about to say exactly that. You're saying there's the Rangers fan bias with it. I don't think it's that biased to look at the third line for the Rangers. That's Kakko. That's the worst time I could forget the last syllable of a name. Kakko, Alexei Lafreniere, and Hedl, who were 39, 39, and 43 in points. My brothers in Christ, they're going to be going up against Miles Wood, Jesper Boquist, and Nathan Bastian. I'm sorry, but no, you have got to run them off the ice.
Yeah, they literally. If it's to the point where, considering that matchup, if they don't have a point in every game, I'm going to be upset, because it's the Devils are obviously a very good team. I don't want anyone to think that I'm trying to say they're going to sweep the Devils. I understand that's probably not going to happen, but you are without a doubt the much deeper team than them. It's not close. There's nobody that can convince me otherwise. I think the only player on their team that you can consider better than the Rangers in the head-to-head matchup is, you could probably go Jack Hughes over Zibanejad. And that being said, Zibanejad is the better overall player. Mm-hmm. Including defense.
Yeah.
So it's that you are the much deeper team regardless of what anyone says. And like you just said, considering who the kid line is going up against, they have to have like a legacy series. I will be so upset if they don't.
And like I wanted to say that I'm not saying the Rangers are a better team than the Devils, but you look at the Devils, 10 of their 13 goals against the Rangers this season by forwards for the Devils, which by the way, I was kind of shocked to see that the Devils only had 14 goals against the Rangers all season in the four matchups.
Yeah, I think the Rangers scored 11 and the Devils had 14.
They were all incredibly close games. I was going to bring that up as well. But 10 of the 13 are by top 6 forwards for the Devils. Like,
Yeah.
the bottom two lines are not going to score that many points. They're not going to get on the board a whole lot. And we've praised the third line. You got to go to the fourth line too. Like, if you're going to have Mott, Gaudreau, and VC, which again, they're not world beaters. They're not going to go out there and be a point per game. But I'm sorry. If it's Andre Palat and Michael McLeod versus them, and then they're rotating like roaming 12th offensive player who like maybe is going to be Andreas Johnson, or like, I'm just trying to find anyone like Sharon Govich. Maybe he's probably maybe him. You've got to be able to beat them. You've got to be able to win.
And speaking of Palat, obviously he played well against the Rangers with Tampa last year, but he has been very underwhelming for them this year.
Yeah.
I don't think any Devils fan would disagree with that. And I believe he's on like a massive goal drought right now. Like I don't think he's scored since like early March, which I'm not sure if that's true, and I don't know what his exact stat line on the year is, but he's definitely been super, super, super underwhelming for them. And oh man, like it's so tough for me to believe that they're going to lose to the Devils, and that's not a shot at the Devils. It's just when you consider how much of a failure it would be for this team, it's just like I don't see it happening. Unless everything goes wrong for them. I don't know. I mean, it's going to be a close series, but I can't see them losing, in convincing fashion to the Devils. Just for the reason being of the Rangers have the way more depth than them. And Carolina too, which we haven't talked about too much. I think there's a lot more to say about the Devils just because we already played Carolina last year, and there's not much to say that we already don't. We don't already know.
We took their biggest threat as well, so I mean.
Yeah, that too. I mean, it's going to be a close series no matter who they play, but it's just like, I mean, it would just be a monumental collapse for them to lose in the first round. I'd even go as far as to say the second round because they've gone all in this year.
Mm-hmm.
So there's no moral victories you can possibly take out of losing to anybody other than like Boston in the conference finals.
Yeah.
There's nothing. There's absolutely nothing. And I think there's a lot of blind confidence from myself personally that they're going to win the first round. Obviously, there's a lot of bias and a lot of things can go wrong, but when you look at the matchups between the Rangers and the Devils, and then the Rangers and Carolina, I don't see how they could lose to either team. Now, obviously, like I said a million times, I don't think they're going to sweep them. I'm not trying to sit here and talk shit about both of them, but it's just like, considering you have this deep of a lineup and this much star power and Igor Shesterkin, it would just be a complete failure for them to not at least make the conference finals again.
I wanted to say that as well, where with either goaltending matchup, and that's not to take anything away from Vitek Vanacek, who's had a very nice season for the Devils this season. He's looked very solid. And I want to say for Carolina, it's probably Freddie Anderson.
Most likely, yeah.
You have the better goaltender in either series, and it's not a debate to be had. The only series in which you might not have the better goaltender, and I'm just talking about this season alone, would be either Tampa or Boston. And if it's Tampa, it's 1A, 1B with Shesterkin and Vasilevsky. In the Boston series, I still think Shesterkin's better than Linus Olmark or Linus Olmark. I think it's just a matter of he's had a better season this year, but that also tends to help when you have the greatest defensive scheme maybe ever put to ice. That you're gonna
Yeah,
have
yeah.
numbers like that.
And I mean, with the Bruins, it's like it's going to be so tough to score against them. Now, I think the opinion that one could have, and I'm not saying that this is my opinion, but it's been something that I've seen talked about, is just like they have not played any meaningful games for months.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just curious to see how they're gonna match the intensity of the playoffs. Considering the makeup of their team and the amount of veterans they have on that team, I don't see that being an issue for them. But anything is possible. I mean, there's been crazier things that have happened. I don't think they're going to lose in the first round. But considering how good the East is, I don't think they're unbeatable by any means. And um, I mean, to talk about the goalie matchup, like Allmark has been outstanding this year. Um, Obviously the defense has helped a lot, but he's made phenomenal saves all season long. So it's not like he's just getting pucks to the chest every single game for every shot. Um, that's the only team that truly scares anybody right now. I think if you're a fan of a team in the playoffs, the only you obviously feel this blind confidence for your team unless they're playing Boston.
Yeah.
That's how everyone feels right now. Um, I'm really excited for the playoffs to start. We obviously don't know who we're playing yet, um,
Thank you,
which is
Devils.
insane. And the other thing that's also insane is the NHL has not released a playoff schedule yet,
I
which
believe.
is like it's unbelievable. Like, what are we doing?
I believe the first game is going to be the 17th, but I don't know anything other than that. I think they said
Yeah,
it
I mean,
starts the 17th. I'm like, that's what you're going to give
but
us?
the thing is, like, we don't know who's playing on the 17th though. Like, we don't know if the Rangers are going to play Tuesday or Monday. Like that, nobody knows because obviously you don't know the matchups, but you could very easily say like, Metro Team 2 and Metro Team 3 will play on this day. That's
Yeah.
all you have to give me. Like that's it. And I think here's the thing that I actually saw that I looked up earlier. So the Knicks play a home game on Saturday in the
Mm,
playoffs. Next Saturday. I mean, so you would like to think that the Rangers would start on Monday because then you would have game 1 Monday, game 2 Wednesday, game 3 Friday, and then 4 on Sunday. So that avoids the Knicks. So
holy.
I think that's what's going to happen. I
Mm-hmm.
don't know, but that would make sense.
Can I take a
Um,
moment to pause that for just a second before you continue with it? Can you imagine Friday night in Madison Square Garden for the first playoff game of the season for the Rangers? That place would be
oh,
insane.
oh my God! I mean, it's gonna be like insane regardless,
Oh,
but that place is gonna be nuts if it's on a Friday. It's going to be unreal. Like that's that I now I just hope that exact scenario happens because that I mean obviously I don't care about home ice, but it would just be. I mean, the Rangers, the players like to call it a jungle. It would be a jungle on Friday if it is on a Friday.
that place would be a madhouse. Like,
Yeah, I
oh.
mean, it's so tough to really break down like either who we're gonna play because there's gonna be a lot of blind confidence coming from us. I think we broke it down perfectly. We're like, it's going to be a close series no matter what, but just there's no excuse for losing in the first round. There just really isn't. Um, and oh man, I think the only thing I could say is just like God help us all because it's not going to be fun. I think this year is going to be so much more stressful than last year,
Oh,
which
it's
is
going to be
saying a
so much
lot.
worse.
It's saying a lot considering the length of the series that the Rangers had last year.
Mm-hmm.
And the one thing that I did want to mention, obviously we've talked about on every episode that they haven't been trying in the meaningless games, all that stuff. I This is something that I've thought about since the offseason, after they got eliminated. They were very, very tired midway through that Tampa series.
Yeah.
Understandably so. And the one thing I will say about Tampa and John Cooper, who I think he is somewhat of an overrated coach.
Hmm.
I don't think he's the best in the league. I think a lot of the hype he gets is more so based on he's great with like pregame speeches. And for a lot of, fans and media, that's all they look at when they're ranking coaches. So that being said, I do think he's overrated, but I think he might be the best coach in the league in terms of adjusting. I genuinely believe that, and I've thought that for a while because you look at the first few games, the first two games against Tampa, the Rangers lit them up, and they scored a million cross crease one timers, and Tampa didn't have an answer for it until they adjusted to taking that away, and the Rangers didn't have that as a weapon anymore, and they were too tired to really score those gritty playoff goals, drive to the net, all that stuff. That is what decided that series.
Right.
And I think they I think they know that, and I think that's why they haven't been trying. So I mean, obviously you would like them to give 100% in every game, but considering that they haven't, if they come out soaring in the playoffs, we're not going to care about any of that. And like I said, I think they realized how tired they were midway through that Tampa series, and they don't want that to happen again because they genuinely believe they could have won that series probably in 4 or 5 if they weren't as tired.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously there's a lot of bias in saying that Tampa's a very, very good team, but I mean, they won the first two. They had a lead in game 3, and they didn't have the energy because they went to 2 game 7s prior.
Yeah.
And I think, I mean,
Also,
most likely round 1 is going to go to 6 or 7. But if you could find a way to end it in at least, maximum 6 games, that'd be huge.
Right.
Because that was one of the bigger problems of the Tampa series where they were just gassed.
I think if you end up playing the Devils round 1 and then Carolina round 2, I really think that Carolina series could end in 5 or 6. I don't think that would go 7. And that's not to take away from Carolina because they're a good team. The Rangers just seemingly can beat them in their sleep. And I think last year, especially in Game 7, where they just finally had gotten the game plan and just beat the ever-loving piss out of them for the entirety of that game.
Yeah,
I think that series would go a bit faster. The Devil series, again, I definitely think that could go 7. I think it probably will go 7. But I could also see a reality where that ends in 6.
I don't see it ending in less than 6.
No, I think 6 or 7 is going to be the magic number for that.
I think with Carolina, it's like the Rangers have obviously been great against them this year, and I don't think they're as scary because they're not as deep as they were last year. Like I think the main reason that Carolina took the Rangers to 7 last year was because they were a very, very deep team last year, and they don't quite have that now. They lost a couple guys in free agency. They had to work, some things around, and I think this year their defense is a lot more like offensively minded than it was last season, and that's a little bit strange considering kind of their identity the past couple years, but. I'm not scared about Brent Burns locking down like Kane, Panarin, Zibanejad. I'm not scared about that. Whereas last year it was like you looked at the Canes, defensive pairs, and I was like, Jesus, like they are just so much deeper than the Rangers. Now we've said it multiple times, like the Rangers are the deeper team and it's not close. So obviously, you would like to think they beat them in like 5 or 6, but who knows? And I mean, with Carolina, I think it depends because I'm not even super confident. Let's say the standings stay exactly as they are right now.
Mm-hmm.
I believe the Canes would play who? it would be
Florida.
either the Panthers or Florida or the Islanders, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I confident against the Canes against either one of them? N- Not really. Like I mean, do I think they win against the Islanders? Yes, but do I think they like completely mop the floor with them? No. And I think that is kind of where I've been with the Canes all year. Like they're good enough to obviously win the division and get a lot of points against bad teams, but I don't really consider them that scary when you actually rank like the Eastern Conference playoff teams right now.
Yeah. I would say, honestly, I'm going to go the opposite direction. I would feel a little bit better about Carolina against Florida. I'm not. I've never seen a more mid 92 point team than the Florida Panthers this season. And shocker,
Yeah.
shocker, I was of the opinion for the majority of last season and coming into this one where I viewed the Panthers as mincemeat. They were overtime 3-on-3 slash shootout gremlins all year, and they couldn't sustain it coming into this season. I I would honestly, if it was Islanders Canes, I think that's a 7 game Islanders win. I
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
just I don't love how Carolina looks. I believe Barzell would be back. Is he back tonight for the Isles?
Um I think I don't know. Maybe. I have no clue.
He's not. I just looked it up. He's not currently there, but he would be back for game 1 of the playoffs
Okay.
because he's been on the edge the entire time. I just
Yeah, and I mean talking about the Panthers, like they just don't have a goalie. And they
yeah, they do.
haven't for years.
Yeah, they do. They're paying $110 million. Surely
Oh
you've
my
heard
god.
of this.
Yeah. Oh, I try not to think about think about the fact that that exists. Um, that is the difference maker for them because they are definitely a very good offensive team, but I mean, they haven't had a stable goalie for years since like Luongo. So I don't know. I mean, the Islanders, their whole team is built for the playoffs,
Yeah.
and I think they are the better team defensively than the Hurricanes. Maybe not by much. Like I'm not trying to make it seem like the Hurricanes are terrible defensively or anything,
I'll
but
do that.
yeah, I guess so. We'll have to see. Like it's just weird to me because like it's so weird seeing Brent Burns on that team still. And like Brady Shea has like a lot of goals the last time I checked. So I don't know what's going on over there, but all I know is I'm not they don't move me. Like I'm just not scared by them like whatsoever.
Speaking of
Oh
old,
man.
speaking of old Ranger great defensemen, I don't know if you know this consciously, and I know when I say it you will. Good old Brendan Smith, who will be facing off potentially against the Rangers in round 1 on the Devils.
Oh
I'm
man.
sorry, if there's one player you need to eat alive, it's him.
Yeah,
And-
he's just not good. And Devils fans know he's not good either. It's not like I'm just picking at players like randomly. Like they don't even want him in the lineup. And he was only kind of good last year because Carolina was just like really I don't even know how to explain them last year. They were just I feel like Carolina was so defense first last year and I feel like they're just the opposite now. And I think Brendan Smith just didn't have to do much last year, so he was like serviceable, but he's been terrible this year. And we haven't even mentioned Luke Hughes yet.
Oh yeah, Luke Hughes is now there.
I mean, I don't want to say anything that's going to come back to bite me. I don't want to,
Oh,
but
here
I'm
it
about
comes.
to. Like I just
Here comes
I
reverse
I
jinx.
don't I have to be careful. Like I'm not scared about him taking over a series
Mm-hmm.
like he's been hyped up to be. And me personally, it's not like I'm just blindly talking about him. I actually keep up with college hockey. And he's obviously been one of the best defensemen in college hockey for the couple of years he's played at Michigan. But he is very, very offense only. And not to say that he can't play defense or anything like that,
Right.
but his third game in the NHL is going to be game one against one of the best rosters on paper put together in recent memory.
Yeah,
Am
that's
I scared of him? No, like I'm not. And now I know he's probably going to score just because why wouldn't he?
first NHL goal
Oh, like yeah, that's
for
the thing.
Luke
Like he's a
Hughes.
lock to get his first NHL goal because everyone does that against the Rangers. But after he scores his first goal, I'm not scared of him. Like I'm just not. And man, like me personally, I don't know why he was rushed into the lineup for them. I mean, not to say he's rushed. He had a couple years in college and everything, but like, what's the point of slotting him into the lineup right in time for the playoffs? Like, I don't see the logic behind it, and I think it's because they don't feel confident in like Brendan Smith and like a couple guys on defense they have there, so
Shocker,
they're
they
just
don't feel
trying
confident
it.
in Brendan Smith.
Yeah, like I think that should tell you a lot because as good as the Devils have been this year, there's been a lot of negative from their fans. Like they haven't been like terrible at any point this year. They haven't really had to face adversity this year. Like they've kind of just been cruising along. But I think now more so that the playoffs are coming up, the Devils fans are starting to pick apart their lineup a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
And we've said it a million times, the Rangers are the deeper team, and I don't think Luke Hughes changes that. I don't. And I don't see how anyone could think that. Obviously I'm not trying to say anything that I'll regret, but I feel confident in this in what I'm saying. Like I think he's going to be a complete disaster? No. But do I think he changes anything for them? Absolutely not. Especially considering the players he's going to have to go up against.
Mm-hmm.
Game 1, like his third taste of NHL action will be game 1 of the playoffs. And I don't see why that's necessary for them. If I were them, I would have just I wouldn't put him in the lineup. Like I don't see why he is seen as this like game changer for them. He's never been that crazy of a prospect. If you actually break down his game, it's one of those things where he's obviously very fast and he's got a lot of offensive upside. But look at the goals he's scoring in college. Like he's going coast to coast, like with nobody even touching him or attempting to break the puck away from him.
Mm-hmm.
That's not going to happen in the playoffs. It's just simply not going to. And like I said, like, do I think he's going to be a disaster and be -4 every game? No. It would be awesome if he was, but I don't think that's going to be the case. But I mean, considering his number one talent is offense and the way that he has shown to score goals and produce points is not applicable to the NHL playoffs in your third NHL game.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I think he's going to be a good player eventually. It's just going to take some time because there's no way you can go from scoring like 6 points a night effortlessly in college to just doing that right away in the playoffs in the NHL. It's not going to happen.
Yeah, that's where I was actually. I'll touch on that for a second because I like the prospect that is Luke Hughes. I think he has some solid upside. For them to put him in for a game 1 in the playoffs in his third game is insane. Again, solid prospect. Yeah. You're going to ask a 19-year-old who has less than 30 minutes of total ice time in the National Hockey League to stare down Patrick Kane and Artemi Panarin possibly on a 2-on-1 rush back the other way. No, it's not going to end well for you.
Yeah, I mean, I just, like I said, I don't know why this is being seen as like a game changer for them. Like Devils fans are pumped, and I understand it. It's always exciting when when one of your top prospects gets called up. I get it, but I just when you're talking about this series, like I don't know, man. It does not scare me whatsoever. He's still going to be, feeling his way in this league as he's trying to play an NHL playoff game.
Yeah, trying to make the adjustment in a stadium that if you make any mistake is either going to lose their mind and blow the lid off of it or eat you alive is daunting for him.
Oh, man. I
It's gonna sound
it's
ridiculous.
so tough to really talk about this because now I just feel like he's going to be outstanding. But it's like I am pretty confident in this, and I don't know how anybody could not
It's in the sense.
necessarily agree with the fact that he's not gonna really do anything that insane in the playoffs, like consistently at least. I'm not saying he's not gonna score or have a point or anything, but I don't see him as like a game changer or maybe a super noticeable player in like every game. I just don't see it happening.
It's in the sense of like maybe I'd get eaten. Maybe I'm gonna get yelled at for this, and that's fine if Devils fans decide to come for me for it. I would almost just let Brendan Smith ride because at least you know he can kind of get nasty in the playoffs. Like, I'm sorry, I don't think Luke Hughes is going to, after a play, be getting in the face of a Tyler Mott to rough him
Yeah,
up.
no
Get into
shot.
his head.
Absolutely not. I mean,
And I'm not saying that you just need nothing but bruisers when it comes time for the playoffs and that you should just get a bunch of goons to go and rough it up. But for your third pair defensemen, you might just consider having Brendan Smith to mess around with someone's head than Luke Hughes to maybe get a couple of points. But again, maybe not because he might not know what to do when a puck touches a stick in a playoff game.
It's just like if for their standpoint, when you weigh like the risk and reward, I just don't know what the reward is. That's I like. Does anyone actually genuinely believe he's gonna like immediately put up his college numbers in the playoffs in his first time in the NHL playoffs? Like, and then the risk would be that he just completely craps himself and understandably so because he might not be ready. Now, who knows what's going to happen? We don't even know if we're playing them yet, but like I said, like there's a lot more to say about the Devils matchup than the Hurricanes because we already played the Canes and we already know what we're going to expect out of them. And I think we've all just been mentally prepared to play the Devils for like months now. So it's tough to not talk about it for a while. Like if they play the Canes again, it's like we already know how it's going to shake out. We feel confident about it, but there's nothing new about, their team or anything like that in the sense of like, do I feel like anything they've done over the offseason or the course of this season will make them better than the Rangers? No, and that's proven to be true so far. So there's not a whole lot to say about them. And like I said, at this point I'm just like hoping it's the Devils because it would be very annoying to be this mentally prepared to play them for months since like January, and then Game 82 changes that. Like
it would be incredibly annoying to have talked about it for this long, and then tomorrow it's just, oh, you're playing the Carolina Hurricanes. It's just shit.
Yeah, I mean, regardless of if it's round one, I think they're gonna end up playing the Devils, regardless. So it's good to talk about them. In terms of the Canes, like, I mean, I just don't know what to say about them other than I would say Rangers in 6. Like it's so weird because they have been number one in the division for so long now, and I have not felt scared of them at any point in time. So it's like, I mean, if you want to talk about the matchups again, it's like we already saw it play out last year, and the best player in the Rangers Canes series for the Canes is now playing for the Rangers. So if you want to talk about the matchups, like there's no point because we already saw it, and the Canes are on paper worse in terms of like the head-to-head matchups. So like, there's really not much to say.
They have a great head coach. I love Rod Brindamore. But yeah, their lineup overall. I mean, Martin Nakis is their top scorer in total points with 71.
Yeah, they're such a weird team
Old
this
man
year. I
Burns
don't know
is third.
Yeah, that's very concerning
for them.
Is Svechnikov playing for them?
He's currently out, I believe. I don't believe he's
like
on
is he just sitting out until the playoffs? Or?
He's not on the active roster. I don't know if he'll be good to go for the playoffs.
Because I haven't heard an update about him for a while.
So if you remove Andrei Svechnikov, who currently is not on their roster, if you look at the top 5 scorers on the Canes roster right now, Mr. Brady Shea would be 5th.
my God, I
just,
didn't even know that.
I needed you.
I knew he had a lot of points this year, but like,
it's important
wow.
to me that you knew that fact. If
I
for
mean,
no
the
other
fact
reason.
that it's on the Hurricanes is wild. Like, if Brady Shea was on like a bad team and that were the case, I'd be like, oh, haha, like whatever. But it's literally the number one team in the Metropolitan, and Brady Shea is fifth on that
Yep.
team in scoring. That's just
Yep.
like. I mean, while we're sitting here talking about all that, like, why wouldn't it be Rangers in 5? Like, if we're actually breaking that down, like, let's talk about that for a second. Like, if Brady Shea is the fifth player that we have to worry about that, like, come on now, guys.
I'm sorry. The fact that I'm just like Brady Shea's fifth. You know what? Nah, screw it. Rangers in 5. You're not wrong.
But like, why not though? Like,
38
you know what I'm saying?
points for a fifth place scoring Brady Shea. Yeah, I mean, they're still going to be trotting out guys like Fost is currently there as a starter.
And,
I want to say he and
Derek
Derek
Stepan?
Stepan. Yeah.
Like, he's like, oh man.
The Pulviardi experiment has not worked whatsoever. He has 2 points in 16 games for him.
I forgot that happened.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, like Rangers in 5 if that happens. I'm sorry. Like, just, oh my God.
Yeah, 2 points with both assists as a Carolina Hurricane.
I think it'll be like a somewhat close series, but like,
What?
while we're actually sitting here and breaking all of it down, like it will end in 5. Like I just don't see how that doesn't happen.
Like, don't get me wrong, I like Frederick Anderson, but he'd roll in with a 904 save, 243 goal against, and he's played 33 games. Antti Ranta, again, Rangers legend.
Yeah, they just love getting the old Rangers players.
Oh,
Jeez.
man. I'm amazed that Lundqvist didn't go there for his, like, one practice before having to
that's
retire.
crazy.
But he's played 27 with a 910, 223. So you'd get one or the other. I might honestly go with Antti Ranta because I think he's just a bit better than Anderson, but I feel because you're paying Frederick Anderson, I know he's getting, what, $5-6 million from them?
Something like that.
You just kind of have to have him be the starter, which he's one shutout this season. Good Lord.
Yeah. Oh, jeez.
Yeah. Looking at the numbers, and I'm not trying to be an asshole, how did they win the Metro? How are they going to win the Metro?
Yeah, like now that you're actually like breaking all that down,
I have
four
players with 50 points.
That's I don't know.
And none of them cracked 80. None of them cracked 75.
And it's weird too because I mean the offensive or the makeup of their team is more offensive this year than it was last year.
Yeah.
So it's just odd that they are not really scoring like all that much.
And it's not even in the sense of the Rangers where they don't have a ton of guys who've scored 50 points, but there's a ton of them that have scored, 35 plus, where practically everyone who's stepped on the ice for them for a full season has over 35 points. They just have no one. They've scored 256 goals this season.
Oh, yeah.
Like, they're just...
I don't know how they've gotten this many points. Like they're obviously a good team. I'm not trying to say they're not, but like to win a division.
God, Rod Brind'Amour really is just.
Yeah, no, he runs laps around like most coaches in this league.
I mean, he really is just him.
Yeah. Oh man, I guess that's kind of it. Like I don't really have much else to say. I'm terrified. Like as confident as I am and as excited as I am, it's gonna be so stressful in a few days. A few days from now, it's gonna just be nothing but stress. So we'll see what happens.
Horrifying time where you have to win because you've pushed all in. It's against a rival that if you lose that series to, you're not going to hear the end of it until you play each other again.
I don't even want to think about that.
Devils fans post 100 memes to their story when they win a regular season game. Can you imagine them winning a playoff series?
Oh my! Like if
The
it will
scenes.
be insane. Like I genuinely think it might be to the point where like if they win that series, whoever scores like the series clinching goal will get a statue,
Oh yeah,
regardless of who it is. So like that's how seriously they take that series.
man. The
Ah,
Brendan Smith statue is gonna look beautiful. Um,
God, I don't know. That would be heartbreaking if he actually does that. Oh my.
he had a goal against the
Yeah, I
Rangers in the playoffs last year. Yeah.
yeah, shorthanded. I
Oh
wish
yeah, it was the.
I
Oh my god, it was the 2-on-1 and Shorty, wasn't it? Yeah.
yeah, that
Oh.
oh, I was livid. I was not a happy camper in that moment.
Oh, good lord. And then on top of it
Yeah.
all, you've said publicly, you're going playoff beard. You now have the
I
ability
have
to.
yes. So tomorrow is the last shave
Yep.
and then we'll see how long it goes. Hopefully very, at least like 3 rounds
Yeah.
worth. So we'll see what's
So
happening.
not only are you going to have the stress of a playoff series, but also the fact that your face is going to be itchier than normal, which is going to be fun.
Yeah.
I've seen your beard in the past. You're going to actually have a playoff beard. I will have, like, garbage-looking stubble where someone's just like, did your razor break? I'll give you the 20 to go get another one.
It's
You don't need
it's
to
the
look
thought
like
that
that.
counts. That's all that matters. That's all that matters.
All right, so tentatively, assuming the Rangers play on Monday and then Wednesday, back at it Thursday for the podcast to discuss Game 1 and 2.
Yeah, I think I was thinking about that earlier today. We'll probably do every 2 games. That would make the most sense.
Yes.
Every 2 games we'll throw one out. And hopefully hopefully the one after that is Monday after they sweep the Devils.
Oh.
Hopefully.
Can you
It won't
imagine?
happen. Oh my.
That would be hard.
That
to beat.
I would be ecstatic if that happened, but well, probably not. But
Probably the
at the very least, yeah, Thursday. Hopefully, we're feeling good by then. That's
hopefully.
a little over a week from right now, so hopefully, I'm in a good mood for that one. Please.
Please at least be 1-1.
Yeah. Oh, I'm so scared.
Oh.
Anyway, I mean, yeah, like I said before, just God help us all. This is going to be so stressful, and it's against a rival, and I'm terrified. I'm confident and I'm excited, but I'm terrified. So I guess that wraps it up pretty
Yeah.
much.
I think we've said more than our piece and also taken shots at pretty much everyone in the Eastern Conference. Is there anyone before we fully wrap it up that you want to take a shot at before we go? I mean, we've done pretty much everyone.
I'll think about it. Let's see. I guess let's hope that the Penguins are eliminated from the playoffs in like an hour.
Islanders
Let's
are
hope.
up 3-1 right now.
Oh, there we go. Okay, yeah. So that's the last jab I wanted to take. I think we
Just-
appreciate it like literally everybody else. So
Yeah. So have fun not making the playoffs there, Tristan Jarry. Enjoy the couch. I think we're good.
I want to talk about this before
Yep.
oh my Tristan Jarry has never played well in a meaningful game ever. He's like not once. And he put the puck in his own net last night. Like, oh my
That was
god.
rough.
I mean, it wasn't egregious, but I'm just sitting there and it's like you have the ability to like win your first meaningful game,
Yep.
and it's against the Blackhawks.
5-2 to the Blackhawks. That loss.
Like,
and-
I mean, he's been a very bad like playoff performer in the past, but I was like, this is your first meaningful game that like should be a win. He just got like
the Penguins
exposed,
The Penguins got body bagged by Peter Mrazek in that game.
and Buddy Robinson scored a goal. He's like a 10-year vet, and he scored his first of the season. That's like his 4th NHL
That's
goal.
his 4th goal.
Like, oh my god.
Oh,
I mean, that just convinces me everything is scripted.
He
I
laid
just wanted
down
to
his
say
life.
that before we hopped off because that was remarkable what
that
happened
man
last night.
They laid down their hope for Bedard to simply keep the Penguins out of the playoffs, and that is the
Oh
greatest
my God.
sacrifice that anyone could have ever made.
Oh That was unbelievable last night. Anyway, yeah, I just wanted to say that. You asked me if I wanted to talk shit about anybody else, and the answer was yes. So now I'm done.
Now you said your piece. Now you feel good. We can call it there. So we'll be back next Thursday to talk about games 1 and 2, and for the hell of it, we'll have one sentence each. We'll do one sentence each for the Toronto game. That'll be the rule.
Yeah, that's it. That we're capping it at that.
And then straight to the playoffs.
Hopefully they just cancel it. That's where I'm at right now.
I would call up any Hartford I know you can't. I would get people in street clothes. Just say, hey, it's a charity. Just play for them. Have Tim Joshua from Manhattan play 60 minutes as right defenseman. Don't put anyone else out there. Don't bother with it. But yeah, and then Thursday we'll be back. God, I hope it's 1-1 or 2-0, and 2-0 for the Rangers. Time will tell.
Just please.
At least
please don't go. Please don't have to come back down 3-1 again. Please.
Oh God, we couldn't mentally cover that or handle that if that happened again.
Oh my! I just please, just everything. Please just go smoothly, please, for the sake of me. All right, that's pretty much it.
That has to be. All right. So back in a week. Until then, thank you everyone for watching the 5th episode of the Rangers Gameplan podcast. As always, I'm Weston, and go Rangers.
All right, guys. Yep. Peace out. Cancel the game tomorrow and go Rangers.